Hello, my name is Sean Benoit, and today I'm going to go over the state of Tennessee v. Paul Ware. In this case, I'm going to go over any mitochondrial DNA that was used during this investigation. So I'm going to go briefly on this. This is the state of Tennessee versus Paul Ware. Paul Ware was on the evening of September 30th, 1994. Lindsay Green was staying with her mother, Sylvia Kane. Kay died at 414 Stringer Street. This home belonged to Sheila Sanders King. Di and her daughter were living there, and ultimately Danny Gaddis, her Di's boyfriend, went out to have drinks. Green was asleep at home, and Miss King was watching them. Miss King's sister and Carla Sanders and her boyfriend Paul Crum came to watch the kids. Crum and Sanders stopped over because he went to deliver marijuana to King. So King ultimately went out to search for um, King and Di, or yeah, let me rephrase that, Di and Gaddis, but encountered a Paul Ware. Paul Ware was known to King because they are actually half brother and half sister from their maternal lineage. So King invited Crum over, or King invited Ware over to her house, and Ware has been invited multiple times. Um, Upon Ware coming home about 1:32 in the morning on October 1st, um, he comes home. Crum sees that he's inebriated. Ware goes into the kitchen, makes a sandwich, goes to bed, goes to the restroom, makes a phone call, and then goes to bed. This is where it takes a turn for the worst, and Di and Gaddis come home and see that the door's locked to the victim's room, where the victim was sleeping. And ultimately, when they were going into the room, they saw that Ware and the victim were both naked, and the victim was already with a blue mouth, or purple, and a blue mouth, and wasn't breathing. Gaddis and Di took Miss Green to the hospital, and this is where Dr. Hayes checked the victim out, the vital signs and all that, and found that she had no pulse or heart rate. They tried life-saving procedures and intubating her, but were ultimately unable to resuscitate the victim. Rigor mortis had already taken effect in the victim, and Miss Green was pronounced dead at 3:24 in the morning. Upon further investigation, Dr. Hayes found that Green was maliciously attacked and was subject to severe trauma in her vagina and rectum area, and didn't have signs of bleeding on the outside or blood on the outside, but had signs of internal bleeding. And Dr. Hayes confirmed that in her testimony that it was penetration coming from a male penis. The police were called, and then ultimately the defendant was arrested. My source for this was actually from the state of Tennessee. I released put the source right here, so if you guys have any questions, you guys can go ahead and read the case. The case was really interesting, and hopefully we can have a discussion of what you guys read, what I read, and we can go from there. So this one was the utilization of YSTRs in mitochondrial DNA. YSTRs are used to test the presence of the Y chromosome in the DNA sample, and investigators can use this to determine if the sample was from a male subject or a female subject. The reason why is it tests the presence of the Y chromosome, and the Y chromosome is only passed down from the paternal lineage, and it's able to identify from a male because a male has an XY chromosome. So this method is greatly used in sexual assaults. It can't confirm the suspect, so we got to be clear on that, but it can identify the gender of the suspect. And when evidence is gathered from the victim, it often contains their DNA and only minimal amounts of DNA from the suspect. Whereas this analysis, it doesn't require a lot of DNA. It requires only minimal DNA, and it can test for find the Y chromosome. So YSTRs are significant in sexual assault cases, and it can pass lineage from like brothers, uncles, cousins, and any male offspring because it's a Y chromosome. Whereas mitochondrial DNA is more for like degraded samples like teeth, hair, and its ability to identify an individual is limited due to the lack of recombination, but offers the ability to identify the maternal lineage where nuclear DNA is low. So this method is used mostly in like mass casualties or, like I said, evidence where it's degraded. It's also used in cases with missing individuals, but is only from the maternal lineage. It's only passed down from the mother's lineage. So this one's going more into depth of the mitochondrial DNA, which I explained in the state of Tennessee versus Paul Ware. So mitochondrial DNA uses limited amount of DNA with samples that are degraded. It can be used for like bones, teeth, hairs, and it can identify the lineage from the maternal side. So mitochondrial DNA is very useful where nuclear DNA is low or non-existent. The mitochondria, it's a powerhouse. So it contains their own DNA, and it differs completely from the DNA found in the nucleus. So first off, it's a lot smaller than it's smaller than nuclear DNA. It's inherited only from the mother, and each mitochondria contains many copies of the mitochondrial DNA molecule. So how did mitochondrial DNA help? So evidence found at the crime scene was only seen as circumstantial evidence against Ware at this time. Um, the defense argued that Ware was framed because Crum was also at the crime scene or at the scene, and he was the only one that was able to give testimony of when Ware entered the home inebriated and all the actions that happened. So during the autopsy, a small red hair was found in her thorax. So at this time, there was also red hair found at the crime scene, which were found on the bed. And forensic scientists used the mitochondrial DNA from both samples and was able to find a match. Was able to get a match. So that was a big break in the case, and it actually helped convict Ware. So there's also a match with both the hair samples found at the crime scene and the saliva samples that was gathered from the victim herself. So in this case, traditional STR analysis wouldn't have been helpful. It could have helped, but it wouldn't be as helpful as the mitochondrial DNA. Why is that? Because there was limited amount of DNA found at or evidence found at that crime scene. They were only able to pretty much convict him of complete like the murder and the child rape because of the hair. So, and the hair really doesn't contain significant amounts of nuclear DNA. Um, that's why mitochondrial DNA, the analysis of that was more useful than traditional STR. Plus, mitochondrial DNA has a higher number of copies and is more sensitive to cases where the DNA is limited or degraded. In this case, it was the hair. The DNA was limited. It wasn't degraded. It was fresh. It was just very limited. And with STR, yes, you can do analysis on it, but it's analysis coming from both parents, whereas mitochondrial, it's only from one parent. So we were able to determine the lineage of the victim, which in reality wasn't. We already explained. Which, let me rephrase that. The lineage wasn't needed since we already knew the victim and her mother was there and testified in court. But the mitochondrial DNA helped helped convict the Paul Ware and shut down any claims by the defense of a possible cover up or possible cover up. So the outcome of this case was Paul Ware was convicted and of both a murder and 2 counts of child rape. He was sentenced to life without parole for the murder charge and was sentenced to 25 years in prison. 25 years for the child rape convictions. His sentence will be served consecutively with the life in prison sentence. He's filed an appeal. His attorneys filed an appeal because one of the appeals is the admissibility of the mitochondrial DNA. They doubted how it played a role in determining that he was not framed because it was so new at that time. So they put in an appeal to retrial because of the mitochondrial DNA. But later on, it came to fruition that mitochondrial DNA was accurate in this case, and the DNA matched, so it helped the outcome. And these are all the references where I got my information from. I would like you guys to go look it up, search it up. If you guys have any questions, you guys can email me or message me, whatever. I'd be interested to talk more about this case with you. Have a great day.